guys so much. I hope everybody had a great spring break, a great Passover. I am so excited to be back, and I can't wait to start doing some really fun and exciting learning again with you guys. We're not really going to be talking about birds too much this week. We're basically going to be starting to talk about worms. Do you like worms? Mm-hmm. Paige and Maya love worms, so they're going to kind of help me out with some of these videos because worms are one of their favorite things. So I have two questions for you guys. My first question is, what letter does worm start with? Does anybody know what letter that is? Can you see it? Paige, do you know what letter worm starts with? Worm.
W?
You would be right. Worm starts with W. And we're going to sing a silly little song to go with it. You want to try and help me?
Sure.
It goes like this. It goes, W is for worm, that's good enough for me. And then we do it again. Can you try it? W is for worm, that's good enough for me. W is for worm, that's good enough for me. Cause W starts for worm. So W is the first letter in the word worm. Now I have another question, and do you see my question mark? I made that just for you guys because I know you guys can find question marks all over the place. My next question is, what is a worm? And Paige, did you notice that there's another W? What also starts with a W, just like worm. What is a worm? Do you know?
I know it has no bones, so and that's how it like slithers a lot.
Tell me one more thing that you might know about a worm.
Worms don't have any arms or legs.
So Paige is describing a worm, and what I did is I made a diagram of a worm. I made a picture of a worm, and I put all the parts on there, and then I put some words to label the parts, and I was kind of thinking maybe you guys could do this too at home. You could take a piece of paper, you could try and see if you could draw a worm, and then you could find out what a worm has on it. Does a worm look like a spider?
No.
No, because spiders have a whole bunch of legs and a big circle body. Does a worm look like me? Does it look like Geveret Fladwood? No, because I have arms and legs and a head.
And eyes.
And eyes. I have so many different things. Does a worm look like a dog?
No.
No, a worm doesn't look like a dog. A dog has fur and a tail. So worms are very different than other kinds of animals and insects that you might see. So in my diagram, I showed you that a worm has a really long body. It's kind of made up of curves and lines, kind of like letters and numbers are. And then on that body, you can see some stripes. Those are called segments. Worms have a lot of different segments on them. So lots of different lines and stripes. You didn't know that? You learned something new? Mm-hmm. Oh, isn't it cool to learn something new? It makes you very smart. It makes you so smart, like we say in sign language. Another thing that worms have is they have a head with a mouth so that they can eat, and they have a tail where the poop comes out. And worms poop a lot. And I'm going to tell you more about that poop, but not today. You're going to have to wait. It's going to be a surprise. I'm going to tell you all about worm poop. It's going to be great. And then, do you know what I learned about worms, Paige?
What?
They have, should we count how many hearts they have? Mm-hmm. They have a lot of hearts. How many hearts do you have?
We have one.
We have one heart. Dogs have one heart. Most things have one heart, but guess how many hearts a worm has? Should we count it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 hearts. Can you guys put up 5 fingers? Worms have 5 hearts.
That's
Isn't that
a lot of hearts.
Crazy? That's a lot of hearts. So I cut out some hearts and I put them all over my worm to show everybody that there's 5 hearts. And then a worm has this big brown patch right there. It's called a clitellum.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
It's just part of the worm's body. So worms have a lot of things, but there's some things that worms don't have. Worms don't have arms or legs. So how do they move, Paige?
They slither around.
They kind of wiggle and slither their bodies around. They don't have arms or legs to help them. Worms don't have any bones. Do you guys have bones?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, if you feel feel your arm or you feel your hand. You can even feel your face. You have bones all over your body that help you kind of walk and move. Well, worms don't have bones. That's why they wiggle so well, because they don't have any bones. They can just kind of be real loosey-goosey. Did you know that a worm doesn't have a nose?
What?
They don't have noses. Do you have a nose?
Yes.
Point to your nose. Do you guys have a nose? Well, what does your nose help you do?
Sniff and smell.
Sniff and smell and breathe. Everybody take a big deep breath. Well, worms don't breathe like that. Worms breathe through their skin.
Oh.
That's why worms always have to have it be wet, because if they get too dry, they can't breathe through their skin, and then a worm will die.
I didn't know that.
Is that a good part of information that you learned about a worm?
I'm
That's
learning a lot.
pretty cool. So they don't have a nose. They breathe through their skin. Do you breathe through your skin?
No.
Nope, that's what our noses are for. And one more thing is that worms don't have any eyes. They can't see where they're going. So you know how they know where they're going?
How?
They feel.
Oh.
They can feel where they're going with their bodies. Absolutely. So if they're wiggling into something, they know that they might have hit something because they feel it, but they can't see it. That's why it's okay for worms to live in very dark places. So this is my diagram of a worm. So your homework today is to maybe go on your computer or your iPad, or maybe you even have a book about a worm, and you could look up what a worm looks like and see if you can make your own diagram. Can you make 5 hearts? Can you make the segments of the worm? Can you make that big brown clitellum? Can you make the mouth and the tail and some worm poop? Can you make your own diagram of a worm today? And then maybe a grown-up could even help you label the parts, which is writing the words to the parts. See if you could do that. That might be really fun. That might take you a little bit. And then I have another piece of homework for you. Do you know what I want you to do? I want you to go on a worm hunt. I think it would be so fun for you guys to try to find worms. So Paige, if you were gonna go on a worm hunt, would you just start, I don't know, looking around your carpet?
No.
Would you look in a chair or the couch? I know. You would look inside your pillow for worms, right?
What? No.
Let me think. Oh, silly me. You would look in the refrigerator for worms,
What?
right?
No.
Right, guys? You'd look in your refrigerator to find your worms?
No.
Wait, no? That's
No.
that's not how you find worms?
No.
Oh, good gravy. So if I wanted to go find worms, where would I have to go?
In a garden.
So you're saying I'd have to go outside?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, here's what I did. I made a chart, and I wrote some questions on my chart. It said, how should we look for worms? So one of the ways I said we might need to look for worms is maybe we should use a shovel. Maybe we should get a shovel so that we could do what? What do you do with a shovel?
Dig in the ground.
Dig. And maybe I might need to use my hands to look for worms. Can you guys think of any other ways that you might need to look for worms? If you can think of other ways, you could put it on your graph or your chart.
Yep.
Those are the 2 ways I thought to look for worms. To use a shovel to dig, to use my hands, but you might think of something else. Maybe you want to use a magnifying glass. Maybe you want to use some binoculars like you did when you were bird watching. I don't know. You could come up with other ways or things to put on your chart. Another question I had was, where can we look? Where can you look for worms? We decided we couldn't look in the refrigerator or in your pillow. So where could we look for worms?
You could look for worms in places with dirt and gardens.
So maybe a garden. So I wrote that here. I put some flowers and I said maybe you could go look for worms in a garden.
Yep.
Or maybe you could look for worms by water, because worms like to be wet. That's how they breathe through their skin.
I didn't think of that.
If you can think of other places that you could look for worms, put it on your chart. There might be other places that I didn't think of. Maybe you could be very smart and use your thinker. And my last question is, what might we find when we're looking for worms? What could we find? What do you think? What could we find?
We could find rocks.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a worm in the dirt, you're probably going to find some rocks.
Maybe some plants.
Maybe you're going to find some plants. Could you maybe find some other kinds of bugs?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe spiders or ants or centipedes. You might find other bugs or insects when you're looking for worms. You're definitely probably going to find some worms.
Yep.
You might find some dirt or mud. So, and if you can think of other things that you might find, you might want to put that on your chart. Once you have your chart, go outside and start looking for worms. Count how many worms you find.
And then when you find them, you can check them off.
Yeah, and then you might want to keep those worms because tomorrow we're going to do an experiment with those worms. So if you find worms when you're on your worm hunt, put them in maybe a jar or something with holes on the top so those worms can breathe. Don't forget to give them some dirt because worms like dirt. We're going to learn about that this week, what worms like and what worms don't like. But keep those worms because tomorrow we're going to talk more about worms and do an experiment, and it's going to be really super fun, but you're going to need some worms for it. Okie doke. All right, I hope that you guys have a super awesome day. I hope you learn a lot about worms, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye, guys.